what's up? Welcome back to the CEO Pulse podcast, where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. We are sitting down here another Mindset Monday with my good friend Justin Thorstad. Bam. That was awful.
That's it?
I think that's the worst I've done so far.
But it was longer than usual, so
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the effort, brother.
There was a couple of good notes in there. I
yeah,
feel. Yeah, definitely.
I wasn't upset.
So you know what? I need my own welcome to the show music one of these days. I mean, I would appreciate it. Yeah, I'm just
for
saying.
me to give that
I'm
to
saying
you?
that. I'm just saying.
You're the musician, brother.
It's well, yeah.
I can't sing.
You are true.
I can't carry a note.
You are saying the truth there.
I mean, I'll give you what I got. You ain't gonna like it.
No, it's fine. We can
critique
move
it
on.
and
Can we
shit.
move on?
Yeah, man.
Okay, let's move on. All right, so all right, let's talk about fear. Let's talk about why are we held back by fear of action when we know that action is going to put us in a better place, right? And it's not really. I mean, it's not all of us that jump into entrepreneurship with, that automatically get hit with that paralysis through fear, but it's the vast majority. I see it with coaching students all the time. I see it. I mean, heck, I saw it in my own self when I was getting started. I would procrastinate on a lot of things before I actually pulled the trigger on action and, giving that step forward. I know we've touched on this subject before, but we haven't really tackled it like this. So you want to open that up?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, we both coach people. Yeah. And inevitably, you come across students and people in general. I think everyone desires something bigger, better, or different in life. And the struggle with being a coach is supporting people in getting into action. And what I found, just based on my experience, is a lot of people are afraid to get into action because they don't want to make a mistake. And it's like, but wait a minute. You're going to do something you've never done before. You may have read about it. You may have taken some coaching, but you've never experienced it yet.
Yeah.
And so you want the result that it can bring, and you know it's going to require behavior, action, but you stop yourself because you're afraid that if I get into action, since I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to make a mistake. And for some reason, you've assigned a lot of negativity to those mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want to talk about, and just like pull out, and so that we can have an honest conversation. Let's bring that out of the shadows into the light and shine some consciousness on it, awareness. And so let's think about that for a minute. If you have a negative relationship to making mistakes, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Now, listen, it's not mandatory that you identify why do I do the things that I do in such a way that, like, where was that installed? Like, when and why? Like, that is a way in order to reframe it, but it's not required. However, this one's going to be super obvious. So think way back when was the first time you remember feeling less than, not enough, unworthy for making a mistake?
Yeah. Chances
are it's grade school.
Yeah, it's conditioning, right? I mean, I think we're just programmed, right? From the minute we're born to not, really do mistakes. But it's weird. I mean, if we're programmed, we're not naturally wired like that. I mean, we come out of the womb, blazing, right, screaming and whatnot, and then we start crawling, and then we, start attempting to walk and everything. Think about if the fear of making mistakes would have been there before we started, walking. Like how much longer would it have taken people or us to walk? I mean, I'd be crawling at 5 years old,
or still.
But I think going through the process of grade school, elementary, and not that I want to bash the education system. I have my fair share of student loans. I've been part of that. But it's important to understand, right? Like there's a generalization that happens when we're growing up. And it's usually to kind of create this canvas of what's acceptable and the norms, that we should abide by at a societal level. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't play outside of that. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't play outside of that, right?
You mean like think outside the box?
Yeah, and but I think we're programmed, right? Like if we I don't know, if we get a C on a report card or a test or something, like it's a bad thing, right? Or a D. And okay, we get reprimanded for performing or making a mistake in that space.
Yeah.
If we get an answer wrong, like boom, you get a mistake. What do you have to do? You have to beat yourself up, go back and study it again, get right. But I think that conditions us to take that same school of thought into the entrepreneur world, and I mean this world is totally different though.
Well, it is, and it just begs the question: if you're still operating like that child that created the story that mistakes are bad, right, based on the results, and you haven't upgraded that, who's running the show now at whatever age you are, decades later, right? And so, I mean, I remember in grade school, like if I got every Friday there was a spelling test, 10 words, and if you spelled them all correctly, you got an A, right?
Yeah.
And if I brought that home, I got 50 cents. Now, some of you were like 50 cents, but when I was
that was a lot of money back in
digits,
1877.
right? I'm older than you might think. So, but anyways, I rarely got the 50 cents. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because there was inevitably one word that I misspelled. Yeah. And subsequently, I still say to everybody, when I do speaking and all that, I can't spell. And so I just kind of chicken scratch stuff. And it's a running joke. However, that's the self-image. I can't spell. Yeah. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. But isn't it crazy how we bring those ideas forward?
Yeah. And now I just don't care. But there's spell check.
Yeah, but you still identify yourself as somebody who can't spell, right?
So, but the thing about it is, like, the things that we internalize as children that brought on that conditioning is, if I make a mistake, that means it's bad. Therefore, I'm bad. And that's why we have so many people that have that perfectionism, right? Like, it has to be perfect. There's something driving that. There's a story that a child made up. And typically it's when I'm perfect, when I don't make mistakes, you get something in return. Like, there's a payoff.
Yeah.
And the payoff is love, connection. You know what I'm saying? Like, you get something from it. And as a child, you feel you need that. I mean, it's kind of a survival instinct. You know what I mean? Like, we're the one species that takes the longest to be self-sufficient. I mean, think about it. Kids aren't even legally able to take care of themselves until they're at least 18 years old. What other animal or species is alive that requires 18 years to stand on its own 2 feet, metaphorically speaking? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, a child is really defenseless and helpless for many years.
Yeah.
And in the animal kingdom, things are born and they've got to be able to run within minutes. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, but we're just different, and that's okay. My point is this. If you've never experienced something before and you're going into uncharted territory, like, what's wrong with just knowing, acknowledging, recognizing, I am insufficient. I don't know everything there is to know. Even when I master this, I won't know everything. There's always going to be something new to learn. And if you could just reframe your relationship to making mistakes as a good thing.
Yeah, as a learning process.
Yeah, you'd be ass on fire making progress.
Interject something really quick. You mentioned the word insufficient. Mm-hmm. Insufficient has nothing to do with worthiness or capability.
Yeah.
So it just means that you're not ready at that point in time for that whatever knowledge you need, right?
What I mean by insufficient is you don't know what you don't know. You are unconscious of your competence.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? Why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Because people assign mistakes with failure.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, then let's just change your relationship and definition of what those words mean to you. You know what I mean? Like, I have very different definitions of the word failure. To me, failure is only one of two things: quitting, or not even getting started. So long as you've already started and you're not willing to quit, you cannot fail. Now, you're going to make a shit ton of mistakes. You're going to hit walls. Things are going to pop up that you couldn't possibly plan or predict for, and you just got to roll with it. But what did you just learn through that experience? Now you're more resourced and confident. And that's going to lead to more success because it's increasing your state of being as you learn. I mean, think about it. When you have a new experience of something, is it ever exciting?
Yeah. I mean, as you're going through the process, you're going to get that feeling of like, it's almost a rush, right?
It is. Yeah. It's that entrepreneur high, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's happening because the mind and body, really, the emotions are being stimulated
Yeah.
New neurons are firing in new ways and new sequences. It's stimulating.
Yeah.
And then the repetition of those things hardwires it into where now it's just part of who you are. And if you're afraid to make mistakes, you don't get the benefit of that whole experience.
Right.
And what value are you bringing forth? I mean, think about it. If you're not stepping into uncharted territory and you're not learning new things and you're not being stimulated, enriching your mind and body, that means then you're operating from memory.
Yeah.
And if you have a memory of a thing, that's because you've already experienced it. And if you're operating from past experiences and memories, what are you expecting to be different in the future? In fact, it can only be you are predictable because you've already experienced that. So you got to go off on an adventure, on a journey.
I mean, you bring a very important point here too. Whenever we stand still and we don't grow, right? We're either thinking about the present or the past. But usually, fear it's a forward thinking, type of thought process.
Yeah, thinking about the negative that's going to go wrong.
Yeah, the negative is but it's impulsing you over to the future, right? So you have that perception of what may be coming your way. You're not going to be afraid or paralyzed, unless it's a trauma or something like that, right? But by something that happened, a while back, like it's not gonna, you know what I mean? It's not gonna have the same impact in terms of fear and leveling your actions if you're an entrepreneur, if you're jumping into business, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm not gonna be, if I lost $100,000, I don't know, last year doing whatever, right? It's gonna be a memory of it. There's gonna be an anger, and there's things that I'm gonna be watching out for, but I'm not gonna be afraid of losing that, that same amount of money or that same money again. It's just,
I'm not going to do that shit again.
Yeah, exactly. You grow cautious of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just connecting different synapses in your brain, and then you start, putting experiences together and whatnot, and become a better person. But if you don't jump into, the whole risk factor, like you're not going to be able to make the 1 million because you learned the strategies and tactics, through that.
But again, so I like your analogy or example. So losing 100,000, right? Okay, so last year you lost 100 grand on a bad deal or business venture.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, you also mentioned the word trauma. Just so that we're on the same page here, trauma is not what happened to you. It's what happened inside of you, the story you made up, the information that you took in, that you perceived about that situation and anchored it emotionally inside your body, right? So as far as making mistakes, now, energy flows where attention goes. Whatever you're paying attention to, that's what you're going to create, right? That's why, like, what you run from, you run into. What you resist persists because it becomes the object of your attention. So the key to all of that is, roundabout way, getting to, like, learning and the lesson. So the lesson was, don't do that because it didn't work. Next time I would do it this way. Because I didn't know about that, but now I do. So I'm going to pivot, I'm going to adjust, and I'm going to come at it from a different angle. Awesome. I feel confident, accomplished, resourced, educated. It was an expensive education, but I got an education. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there is such thing called a stupid tax.
Yeah, but
many people are paying it.
I think what happens is that, like, there's a reframe that's necessary when it comes to the way that we think about failure, right? Or the fear of failure, the fear of not taking action and failing, and standing still in that one place. Again, we right before we clicked record, we were talking about the amazing stuff that can happen whenever you do leap into something forward, right? You have that perspective, that idea of the future, and even though, like, we understand what the possibilities may be theoretically, if you haven't walked the path. But if you understand what the possibilities can be theoretically, you've seen other people go through the Rubicon River, per se, right? Mm-hmm. And down to the other side. Now they made it. You see all that evidence. It's not personal evidence, but it's out there, and that fear still, like, it's
but here's the thing.
It's still a wall.
Yeah. So what you just mentioned sparked something, and that was, you can think about the worst case scenario that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna take this shot, and it's going to fail. I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to go bankrupt, and I'll have to start from literally scratch. You can conceive the worst possible outcome, right? Mm-hmm. You can predict that. I mean, conceptualize it. But here's the really cool thing. When you step into the unknown, into new territory, and you're on adventure, the highest and best that you can conceive, there's still more available.
Yeah.
And so if you don't get into action, what you're saying is, I'm willing to pay this price of beating myself up because of the regret, such a toxin too, regret. And I'm gonna regret it the rest of my life by not giving myself this opportunity to succeed.
Right.
And I'm going to pay prices for that, not only internally, but externally too. Like, I'm not going to make that amount of money. I'm not going to meet those people, make those connections, and expand my network of beautiful, wonderful people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have wonderful, enriching experiences.
Yeah.
I'm more committed to not making a mistake. It's like, again, going back to just to kind of wrap that up, it's like, if you start thinking about what could go wrong, or excuse me, we were using the losing $100,000, right?
Yeah.
As an example. If you focus on, I made a mistake, and that's bad, therefore I'm bad, and I don't want to do that again, and now that's all you think about, what do you think is going to happen next? Like, you're going to be wildly successful? Of course not, right?
Yeah.
So what's the relationship you have with yourself and your results? Like, is it compassionate? Is it graceful? Is it a state of like, thank you for giving yourself an opportunity to succeed? Even though it didn't work out, here's all the things that I learned, the gifts, the lessons. And now moving forward, I feel empowered because I'm resourced.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what's your relationship to that end result? And why do you think your identity is tied to it? Your sense of worthiness. Like, your worth is not on trial in entrepreneurship. It's not, if I succeed, then I'm a success.
Yeah.
Like, well, good luck, because 9 out of 10 businesses fail.
Yeah.
So are you willing to start 10?
Well, I think there's also a change of attitude that happens as you go through that chasm, right? As you go through that process of I mean, trying something out, it doesn't really pan out the way that you want it to pan out.
Ever.
Shit changes along the way. You have to pivot. You have to adjust. There's an attitude change. Like one of my old captains used to say, "Build skin." Like whenever we came across something that was scary at the fire ground or emergency scenes or whatnot, like I mean, we would laugh about it afterwards. But you get thicker skin, build thick skin, build thick, And I really see it. I really see it like that, right? Every time we get hit by quote unquote failure, it's a new opportunity to take that, put it into your tool belt, and realize that you just got thicker skin because of that. Now, what happens to your attitude? I know I've been in spots where I'm committed to something. Like, I'm gonna make this work. I'm not interested. I'm committed to it. This thing's gonna pan out. It's gonna come out. It's gonna work out well. And I go through it, and then I fail. I hit a wall. Boom! I hit a wall. Usually, my response to that, it's not. I mean, at this point, because of that thicker skin and the dumb tax that I paid, or whatever you want to call it, it becomes this me versus me attitude. This sense of conviction, which I think goes beyond the planning of something, the working towards something. When you have conviction, it's almost a sense of like, I'm either gonna die trying this fucking thing and making it work, or it's gonna pan out the way that I intended. Or better, right? And you never know what happens. Like, opportunities come along the way, and the perspective, the possibility gets bigger. But I think failure, that sense of getting hit, failing often and failing forward, creates also that sense of conviction in something. It tests you to ask yourself whether you really want it or not.
Yeah.
And when you start, what happens, I'll start defending the thing that I made a mistake on. And if I start defending that thing, even versus against myself, like, no, I should quit, and having that, those internal conversations, I should quit. This is too tough. This is too whatever. I'll be my own devil's advocate and say, the hell with that. I'm not going to quit. Like, no, this is a calling now. Like, I know now more than ever that this is something that has to be done. But you don't get that level of conviction unless you try something. And by trying something that's it's new and uncharted territory, like you framed it earlier, you're going into something that's, more than likely you're going to have a couple of failures in there, right?
But mistakes.
But
right?
it's we can't get that conviction and that sense of absoluteness into something unless we actually give it a shot.
Well, true. I'll agree with that because it's like most people get excited about the prospect of what you can create with this new endeavor, right? And fall in love with that. And then you go get in an action, all excited, like revved up, and then inevitably, where's the results? It's been a long time. I put in a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of me into this, and it's not even off the ground yet. So I'm not getting the results I want, and it's taking longer than expected. Like, that happens 99% of the time. And now your resolve's going to come out. Are you convicted, or were you interested?
Yeah.
And why are you doing this thing? Was it just for the money? Because if that's the case, how many people burn out, commit suicide?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they fail because they quit, and they go back to the job, and then now they're so negative about anyone that wants to go do something new. You know what I mean? Like, oh, don't do that. You're going to fail. It's like, no, you failed because you quit.
Yeah.
Like, when I start a business, it ain't over until I win. And I always win because I'm not willing to quit. That word failure, man, it's just not something that comes out of my mouth. But I make mistakes all day, every day. Now, I like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't wake up in the morning, I'm like, God, I wonder what beautiful, brilliant mistakes I'm going to make today.
Yeah.
Sometimes they sting a little bit.
Yeah, we still aim for the best.
It's like, God, that was so obvious, Justin, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, no, not doing that, not beating up either.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take it as, okay, so what was there to learn from this? How can I be better next time? How can I show up more aware? And I just think that, and I don't care what you study, like we're entrepreneurs. The day you think you figured it all out, man, that's the day you need to go back and study because you really don't know shit.
Yeah.
Like,
Either that or you've spent too much time on the same level and you're ready to level up.
Yeah, you've mastered a thing, and now what are you going to do? Rest on your laurels and be like, oh, I've arrived. Like, there's no finish line other than death. So what are you going to do now?
And most entrepreneurs are like that, right? Like, you get to a point of fulfillment, of comfort, and it starts to feel almost, uncertain. Dude, I don't want to say it's, comfortable or scary. It's just uncertain. Like, what am I missing? There's
you waiting for the shoe to drop?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Everything's going well. Like, what am I missing? Like, is there something that I'm not seeing?
Easy trauma, boy.
Yeah, no. yeah. Well, it's crazy, but it's almost like, when you get to I don't know, say that you're trying to develop a new strategy. Mm-hmm. For example, when I was trying to wholesale, right, learn how to wholesale. I was going through the process, and there were so many different things that were happening during the wholesale process as I went through my first, I don't know, you name it, 10 to 20 transactions. That every single transaction was something new. Yeah. And when I started kind of having the answers for the stuff that was coming up ahead, I would ask myself, like, there's something missing. There's something that I'm not, what's going on. But that, that just, calls to a point that you're ready to level up to something else.
Yeah, well, and do you still operate that way? Sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes. And okay. I don't see it as a scary thing. I just recognize when I start getting too comfortable in a single area, it's like, okay, cool, that's good. Like, how am I sitting with it? Am I doing well, or do I is there something else that I want to expand into? And then let the growth continue. Okay. That's really how I see it. But it's not. It used to come from a space of almost like
things are too good.
Angsiness.
Now it's gotta
angsiness. You know what I mean? But
I'm just curious. Yeah. I know for me, when I have success at a new endeavor, man, it is the worst thing for me. It is because the money will start rolling in, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take a break, and a couple months go by, and I'm still on a break. Yeah. And that for me, that success, I start getting complacent. And when I get complacent, I stop paying attention and I get bored. And so I've always got to be like, if I'm like 90% of the way done and I got so much momentum, I know it's 100%, what I've learned to do now, reset. Yeah. Reset. Because if I don't keep moving the target, has something to focus on that's stimulating and exciting, man, it's not a good thing.
The journey.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it shows too that you've come to a space where you I don't want to say conquered the fears, but you're doing pretty well with having that
So the relationship with it. You know what I mean? It's like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm fearless. I think that's ridiculous and bullshit. No one's fearless because you have a mind and it makes up stories, false evidence appearing real. The difference is my relationship with it.
Yeah.
When it pops up, because especially when I was, going through personal development and transformation, like it would take me down. It would stop me at times when it was something really big, And now when I hear that little voice being like, who do you think you are? What if this goes wrong? It's a cue.
Yeah.
It's a trigger to remind me, like, oh shit, man, I forgot about you. You've been there the whole time. You're not getting rid of it. Like, it's just part of your mind, And so now I look at it as, hey, thanks for showing up, old friend. Now I'm going to use you as a point of reference to remind myself of how far I've come. Because that's empowering and that's going to drive me forward.
Well, like you said, it never goes away. It doesn't matter if you're in your 50th project or entrepreneur venture. It's not going to go away. You're still going to have that sense of apprehension when it comes to like jumping to something new, right? The scales may be at a different level and whatnot, but it doesn't completely go away.
No,
I think the key is in not letting it stop you from moving
so
forward.
I'll say
do your
this.
due diligence and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
When the fear comes up, what most people do is they second guess themselves and they talk themselves out of it. So instead of second guessing yourself, how about just a double check?
Yeah.
There's a big energy difference in there. One's doubt, worry, fear, anxiety, and the other one's just like due diligence.
Let me connect that to the conditioning that we got as kids. How many tests did you take that were multiple choice questions, and you saw an answer? It's like, I think it's that. I'm gonna do that.
But it could be that one.
But it could, and then you went back and second guessed yourself, and then you checked off the wrong one.
Yep.
Every time. By the way, it's almost always C. Right?
No shit. I'll tell you what. So when I went and did my broker's license in 2010, and it's like 30 extra questions over the pre-licensing, which is 120. This one was 150 questions. I was so like, I got to pass this thing because I don't want to do this again and pay the money and da-da-da-da. Yeah. And so I'm answering it, and I was like, just dialed in, right? But by about 120, 130 questions, somewhere in there, I was so mentally exhausted. I literally said, fuck it. B, C, C, A. I just answered like at least 20 questions blindly. I'm like, I don't even care. And passed. But how are we doing on time, Gio? 39. Okay. Yeah. Real quick, I want to cover just a couple of things that you learned in school.
Yeah.
1, there's only one right answer. 2, sit down, do as you're told. Don't speak up.
Yeah.
And the most damaging, you are to study and take tests by yourself. Now, all those things that we learned, right? They didn't tell us that, but that's what we internalized, and that's the personality we took on at school, at least. Let's think about that. Mistakes are bad. So now I'm afraid out there in the real world. I mean, there's no more fucking report card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, no one asks for it.
Yeah.
But there is actually a report card. It's called your financial statement. Income, expenses, assets, liabilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So take tests and study by yourself. Like, that's the worst thing you can do for yourself. As you know, you got to collaborate. You got to mastermind. You got to connect. Yeah, because all the different resources and like, you could win so much faster. And it's a beautiful process because of all the people you take with you.
Yeah.
You know? And sit down, shut up, do as you're told. You know what I mean? Like, when is that ever going to get you fed? You got to open your mouth. Well, express your opinion.
Yeah, one thing that I'm going to add to that as a fourth is the creative process is almost completely stopped, right? Unless you're taking an art class where you're drawing or something like that. But the thinking outside the box and solving problems through creativity is one of those things that little by little gets just kind of sucked out of us. My son got we got a notice. We got a note from the teacher, right? She's like, well, he's doing the math, and he was. I don't know because I really I didn't dive deep into like how he was doing the thing, but he was coming up with the answer. It was the correct answer. He just wasn't doing it,
Their way.
He wasn't doing it the teacher's
Per
way,
the
right?
assignment.
Yeah. But like he was getting the answers right. And I'm sitting there thinking like, man, this is so crazy. Like he found an easier way to do it and he's getting chewed out.
Yeah, it's
just
wrong.
because that's the way the box works.
How many different ways are there to do a thing?
Oh, countless. I mean,
Mathematically speaking, infinite.
yeah.
But school, they want it done one way.
Yeah, so we bring that into this space, into this world, where the one way of doing things is, I mean, it's gonna put you out of business. In a fucking
Oh
week.
man, stuck in his ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that creative process really just inhibits. It's at this point. I mean, we're taught out of it.
Yeah.
If you're not aware of what's going on.
Well, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Right. There's a whole chapter in there about mastermind.
Yeah.
When two people come together, it creates that synergy of like a third mind.
Yeah.
You can call that all different kinds of things.
Yeah.
You can call it source. You can call it, information.
I call it the collective.
Absolutely.
Right now, I mean, there's really three brains working together. Yours, mine, well, and then Gio's too. But so make it
Is it
fourth.
working?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's
He
off
doesn't
right
listen
now.
to me.
So your
heard that.
brain, in this conversation, your
Yeah.
brain, my brain, and then the collective of the two, which really just synthesizes new stuff. Also, in Napoleon on Think and Grow Rich, there's a whole chapter on intelligence, right? Synthetic intelligence and creative intelligence. The creative part, I think it's one of those things that gets slowly just oxidized through the process of not putting it into practice. Which
You don't
is,
use it, you lose it.
Yeah. So if we only know one way of answering problems, right, or we have that limited thinking, right? Like, of course, things are going to be scary.
Yeah.
Of course, there's going to be a fear of failure. Why? Because you think there's only one way of doing it. But in reality, when you jump into it and you start collaborating, you start thinking outside the box. You start just contemplating different options and answers and results and stuff that you can have in terms of like as a result of the actions that you put into it. The world becomes a lot bigger, right?
Oh, totally. Well, so I guess my final words on it are this. You can focus on what could go wrong, what mistakes you can make, what you stand to lose, or you could focus on, I'm going to give myself an opportunity to win and succeed. And I don't just mean externally. I don't mean getting the business to a certain income or revenue or the accolades or recognition. I mean, what is the benefit I'm going to experience in here with me, that relationship? What do I have to gain internally? My sense of accomplishment, that I'm capable, that I'm resourceful, that I can collaborate, that I can win. Because if you get that internal state, you've ever heard as within, so without, like your external reality is nothing more than a reflection of your personality.
Yeah.
Any bottlenecks you have and obstacles, it's only because they exist in your psychology. And so you've got everything to gain by giving yourself a chance to succeed and everything to lose by being afraid and sitting in your seat.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. We'll close off with that. Justin, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, where is the best place to find you?
Social media, Facebook, YouTube, JustinThorstad.com, or my cell, 602-348-8534.
Beautiful.
Still, no one's ever called or text.
Ladies and gents, do us a favor. If you like the content that we're putting out there for you guys on a regular basis, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. Send this out to somebody who you think might benefit from it. If you want to get a hold of me, I'm pretty active on social media at Rafael Cortez CEO. You can find me on Instagram. You can go to reiwholesaling.com as well for coaching and just reaching out to me. And I mean, with that being said, we're going to close it off and we'll see you guys on the next one. Stay focused. You got this. Bang.